Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be working on this vintage 1970s Century 430 Silver Streak locomotive from TYCO. This is a locomotive which I picked up in that buying shady model trains off of eBay video. I believe it did show some signs of life. It might even be able to move a little bit, but it's certainly not a runner by any means. It hardly moved, I believe, when we tested it. So it's going to need a bit of work, but these old TYCOs, despite being ridiculously unreliable, also don't tend to be terribly hard to get working again. So I've got a bit of confidence in this one. Anyway, before we get working on it, let's take it to the track so I can show you all exactly what it's doing, and then we'll get working on it. So this right here is sort of what's going on right now. I'll give it a bit of power, and you can see it does move a little bit. The light's coming on a bit, but it's obviously not running, so it's going to need a bit of work. It could just be dry lubricant. Well, now it's kind of running consistently, but yeah, it's going to need some work. So let's bring it back over to the workbench and see if we can get this thing kicking again. So I'm pretty eager to get working on this locomotive, but before I do, I just want to quickly let everybody know something, which is that I did a draw for the CN locomotive, and we have a winner. Kenneth Lee, congratulations. This is now your locomotive. I'll try to get this thing shipped out to you as soon as possible, and yeah, I hope that you enjoy it. So that's it for the CN locomotive giveaway. Anyway, on to the repair. Let's get working on this sucker. First thing to do is I just need to find a flathead so that way we can open this part up. Uh-oh. So this right here is some trouble. You can see there are burn marks on each of the coils, and this is a sign that this motor was overheated at some point. So this might actually be a bad armature. Hopefully they're not shorted so bad that this can't run anymore, but in all likelihood this has gone bad. So yeah, we'll try to get it going again. I do have some other motors, so eventually if this motor does burn out, it's not the end of the world. It would just be nice to try to get it running with the original motor. So let's give it a shot. Commutator on this engine actually doesn't look too bad, which is surprising because I find usually when the coils are bad, usually the engine's got a lot of miles on it, but in this case it doesn't look really to be that way. So we'll just clean this up. This is a fiberglass pencil, by the way. I get so many comments asking about these things, and they're a pretty decent tool. I guess I'll put a link in the description if you want to get one for yourself. Yeah, it's a fiberglass pencil for all the people that are looking. Anyway. This block right here is not the worst one I've ever seen, but I could use a bit of work. I don't know if maybe somebody cleaned this side a bit, because it's sort of weird that there's this big lump on this side right here, but yeah, we'll try to clean it up just a little bit. The gears were turning fine though, so that's a good sign. Well, managed to get most of the grease off, but if we look here, the trouble is not done with. That's not the worst case I've seen, but this is the reason you want to keep your model trains away from carpets. Well, I think we can start reassembling this whole thing now that the block's all cleaned up. So we'll begin by just putting the motor back in. Before I do that though, I'm going to put a bit of oil right here on that bearing. And as always, you don't need a crazy amount. So that should be good right there. And now, the most complicated part of ever assembling any TYCO locomotive, which is getting the brushes back in. I think in this case I'm going to try to remove these plates because the solder joints are actually really clean on this one, which seems to be kind of rare on these models. So hopefully this won't be too difficult, although it was a little trickier than I expected last time. Before we go any further assembling things, I just want to test out this motor to make sure it actually works. It's actually not that bad. That's a really good sign for this motor. Well, let's continue here. I'm just going to put a little bit of CA over the top of this gear because last time when I tried to skip this step, it backfired. So, yeah, we'll let that dry. Yeah, while we wait for the glue to dry, why not take this time to service the rear truck. So unfortunately, it would appear I developed a bit of a case of the stupids while working on this, and I forgot to put these on around this wire right here. Now the somewhat good news is that one of the wires actually broke off this thing, which means I already have to break out the soldering gun. So I'm just going to unsolder this and put these parts back on. It's very easy to forget these. I've done it a couple times before, but it can be a real pain in the neck. So if you're doing this by yourself, try to keep that in mind. Anyway. Well, I believe our locomotive is done here. Let's take this thing over to the track and test it out. Okay, let's find out. Has the work paid off, or is it all for nothing? Hey, oh, yeah, she's going. So, oh. What the heck? Yeah, talk about speaking too soon. I thought we had a runner there, and then it just kicked out. Weird. You can see the unit's getting power because the light's coming on. I don't know, has that bad armature finally bit the dust? So what would appear to happen is this got kind of awkwardly caught in there while I was installing it, and it pulled the wire out, and I guess it was just touching a little bit. You can actually see the ends of the wire still sticking out of the solder there. So it worked for a little while, and then it just ripped off or something like that. So I guess that's our problem. Well, despite that armature looking like crap, the engine seems to be running fine. It's even pretty quiet, and it's running consistently too, so really no complaints there. Now let's check the condition of the engine by doing a low speed test. Let's see how little power it takes. What the heck? This is a TYCO with a 3-pole motor. I mean, you can see it's cogging, but for a power torque, that's incredible. Just look at that. Wild. Well, I'm pretty satisfied with the results. I'm really quite impressed. I did not expect it to turn out that well, especially with the condition of that motor. So yeah, no complaints there. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching.